The nights always came too early now. Dusk would seep through the curtains and crawl across the walls, and the house would start to change. It used to hum faintly, gently with her presence. The kettle's whistle, the low murmur of her voice as she spoke to the cat, the faint sound of her music drifting from the study. But now it was just the refrigerator's hum and the sound of my own breathing. The silence had learned to stretch itself thin across every room. Her side of the bed was exactly as she left it. I couldn't bring myself to change the sheets. Sometimes I'd sit at the edge and trace the small dip where her body used to rest. It felt like touching a memory made solid, fragile as dust. Her pillow still carried the faintest trace of her lavender shampoo, and even that scent had begun to fade, like a photograph losing color. People said time would dull it, that grief would round its sharp edges and teach me how to live around the absence, but they never told me how quiet it would be, how the silence itself could become a sound you hear even in your sleep. Every night, I tried to do things differently. I'd pour a glass of whiskey, pretend to read, scroll through old photos until my vision blurred. But the bed always waited. The bed that knew what it was like to hold two bodies instead of one. The bed that remembered more than I wanted it to. That night, I lay on my side facing the window, the sheets cool against my skin. The rain outside had started sometime after midnight, a steady rhythm tapping against the glass. I let it lull me into that half-sleep where dreams and memories blur. I thought I heard her voice then, soft, almost teasing the way she used to say my name just before drifting off. I opened my eyes to the darkness, heart stuttering in my chest. And then I felt it, the faintest dip beside me, the gentle pull of the mattress under another weight. For a long moment I didn't move. My breath caught somewhere between fear and disbelief. The air changed, thickened, as if the house itself was holding its breath with me. The sensation was so real that my mind refused to argue with it. The warmth at my back, the familiar creak of the old frame, the rhythm of breath not my own. My body remembered what my mind wouldn't allow, that she used to slip into bed this same way, careful not to wake me. I told myself it was the house settling, the wind, my imagination giving shape to longing, but the warmth didn't fade. It lingered patient, close, alive. My throat tightened. Against every instinct I reached back, fingers brushing the empty space beside me. Nothing but air, cold sheets. But still, the weight remained not on the bed, not in the room, but inside me. It was the first time I realized that grief doesn't just haunt, it imitates. It learns your rituals, your breathing, your heartbeat. It slips into your bed when you least expect it, wearing the warmth of the person you've lost. And when I finally closed my eyes again, I whispered her name into the dark, not to call her back, but because I couldn't bear the thought that I might one day stop saying it. The storm outside deepened as the night went on. Rain lashed at the windows in steady waves, a sound that was somehow both comforting and cruel. I'd always liked storms before the way they filled the silence, the way she used to lean against the window and say the world looked cleaner afterward. But that night, the sound only made the emptiness louder. I sat up when I heard the knock. It wasn't loud, just a faint tapping against the front door. But in that hour, in that silence, it was enough to make my heart jump. I hesitated, half convinced I had imagined it, until it came again, urgent this time. Lee stood there, soaked through, rain clinging to her hair and clothes. Her eyes looked as tired as mine felt. She tried to smile, but it faltered before it could become anything real. "The roads are flooded," she said softly. "I couldn't drive back. I told her to come in, that she could stay the night, that the guest room was still made up." The words felt strange on my tongue, like I was saying them from a distance. She stepped inside, and for a moment she just stood in the hallway, looking around the house. I could see the way her eyes landed on small things, the photographs still hanging, the coat still hanging by the door. She didn't say anything. She didn't have to. We made tea in the kitchen, though neither of us really wanted it. The storm drowned out our attempts at conversation. I asked about her work, her students, her mother. She answered quietly, politely, as though we were strangers meeting for the first time. There was something fragile about the space between us, the unspoken knowledge that we were both circling the same absence. When she finally said she should try to sleep, I nodded. I pointed her toward the guest room and went back upstairs, the sound of the rain now a steady drum against the roof. I lay awake for a long time, watching the shadows move across the ceiling, listening for anything that might remind me of what it felt like to not be alone. I must have drifted off at some point, because the next thing I remember was the sound of a door opening. Soft footsteps. I didn't move, my body tensed, but my mind couldn't catch up. Then the mattress dipped behind me, that same slow sinking as before. My breath hitched. A voice, barely more than a whisper, broke the darkness. "It's just me," she said. "Lee." Her tone wasn't apologetic, just quiet, heavy with something I couldn't name. The bed shifted again as she settled in beside me. I could feel the warmth of her body through the thin layer of sheets. It wasn't intrusive, just their human, real, immediate. I wanted to say something, to ask why she had come, to remind her that this wasn't right, but the words never came. Maybe because I already knew. Maybe because she did too. Her hand trembled when it brushed mine. It was a small, accidental touch, but it broke something in both of us. I heard her breathing falter, then a sound quiet, muffled, and I realized she was crying. Not loudly, not seeking comfort, just tears she had been holding back for too long. I turned then, slowly, until we were facing each other. The light from the window traced her face in silver outlines, eyes red, cheeks wet, lips pressed tight in an effort not to make a sound. And then she whispered, "I miss her too." Something in me gave way. All the months of silence, of holding myself together, of trying to be still while the world fell apart, they all came undone in that one moment. I felt her hand find mine again, and I didn't pull away. We lay there like that, not talking, not pretending, just breathing. The storm outside raged on, but inside, something softened. It wasn't comfort, not exactly. It was the kind of closeness that doesn't ask for anything, that doesn't seek to fill the emptiness, only to share it. When I finally closed my eyes, I didn't feel the sharp edge of loneliness pressing down on me. For the first time since she was gone, I felt warmth that wasn't memory. It wasn't Clara beside me, and I knew that. But somehow, that didn't make it wrong. It just meant that grief had found a new shape, one that trembled and breathed and reminded me that the living still need to be held. Morning came slowly, as though the sun itself was hesitant to disturb the quiet. I woke to the sound of rain easing into drizzle, the air heavy with the scent of wet earth and faint traces of the storm. For a moment, I didn't remember where I was. I only felt warmth, not the imagined kind that had haunted my nights, but real, lingering warmth on the sheets beside me. Then I turned, and the space was empty. Lee was gone. Her side of the bed was smooth, carefully remade, as though she had wanted to erase the evidence of what had happened, or perhaps what hadn't. On her pillow was a folded note, written in the looping, careful script she'd always used when addressing birthday cards or thank-you letters. "Sometimes the living need to hold the living," it said, "to remember how to live." I sat there for a long time, holding that piece of paper, reading the same line over and over until the words blurred. I could almost hear her voice in them, not the tremble of grief that had filled her whisper last night, but a steadier tone, one that carried a kind of fragile grace. The house felt different that morning, not lighter, not healed, just changed. The silence was still there, but it had softened somehow. It didn't press against my chest as hard as before. I got up, made coffee, opened the windows to let in the scent of rain. The air was cold, sharp, alive. I walked through the rooms, touching small things without meaning, to the edge of her favorite mug, the photograph on the mantel where she and Lee were laughing together, their heads bent close in a way that made them look like sisters rather than in-laws. The memory didn't crush me this time. It ached, yes, but it didn't hollow me out. Later, I found Lee's coat still hanging by the door, damp from the storm. She must have gone out early, probably when the roads cleared. Part of me wanted to call her, to say something, thank you, maybe, or I'm sorry, but neither of those words felt right. What had passed between us wasn't something language could hold. It wasn't love. It wasn't betrayal. It was grief meeting grief in the dark, recognizing itself, and resting for a while. I spent the rest of the morning moving slowly through the rituals I'd abandoned months ago. I washed the dishes, changed the sheets, opened the curtains in every room. Light poured in, catching the dust in thin, golden columns. For the first time, the light didn't look like an intrusion. It looked like possibility. That night, when I went to bed, I hesitated before lying down. The pillow beside mine was clean now, cool to the touch. I thought about how long I'd left it untouched, afraid of what it meant to disturb it. I smoothed the fabric with my hand, then climbed in and let my body sink into the mattress. The same creak, the same faint dip, familiar, but no longer haunted. I closed my eyes and listened to the quiet. No voices, no imagined footsteps, just the sound of my own breathing, steady and certain. And in that silence, something shifted. I realized I didn't need to fill the space beside me to feel her presence. She was there in the rhythm of rain, in the scent of lavender that still lingered faintly in the fabric, in the warmth that my own body now gave back to the world. What Lee had given me wasn't comfort in the usual sense. It was a reminder that being alive isn't a betrayal of the dead, that moving forward doesn't mean leaving someone behind. It means carrying the warmth they left you and learning how to share it again. When sleep came, it wasn't heavy or dreamless. It felt gentle, like the world was finally giving me permission to rest. And in that dreaming state before darkness claimed me, I felt her hand, Clara's, not as a ghost, not as memory, but as the quiet certainty that love, once felt, doesn't vanish. It only changes shape, finding new ways to reach you. That was the night I understood what Lee's note had meant. Sometimes the living do need to hold the living, because in doing so, we remember the simplest, hardest truth, that we are still here, that we can still feel. And that feeling, even when it hurts, is proof that we are still human.